Hello, my fellow schizotypals. What up, doe? Did you hear that noise? And welcome back to Highlight with Carlisle Fletcher. Um, Today is gonna be a complicated episode. It's gonna be pretty difficult. It's just a difficult conversation in general, but I think this is a really important thing to move forward on because today's episode is going to be featuring philosophy, the 20th century, how we ended up here, and the idea of the moral conversation. So we're going to be going into politics, which I don't particularly like doing because I think that people are very politically malleable. I think that if you have a good argument or a good opinion, you can change minds. So the thing about it, though, is that this directly intersects with literature and culture and life choice and things like that. So I have a monologue prepared, and we're just going to try this out. So let's make some things absolutely clear. At Highlight, we traffic in good ideas. Not right or wrong ideas, or ideologically consistent ones, but quality ideas. Ethically consistent ideas. I'm also not squeamish to criticize bad ideas. However, when it comes to the holy cows of a religion, it's difficult to make progress because one day they came for the socialist and you didn't speak up because you weren't a socialist. The next day, your family, then you. Silence is complicity. The Catholic Church is the Antichrist. I love Catholics and Catholicism, but the Pope and the Church have been weapons used against children and men. I don't trust the Bible. It is also idolatry. As leftists, as people, we freely discuss this, and we have made it a point to use it against the church as a great weapon against its legitimacy. This is the same church that founded Rome, or not founded Rome, but the same church that founded, the Christian empire with Constantine. So it's the same Church of Rome, of Constantine and Constantinople, same church that crowned Napoleon, and the one behind the Crusades, the foundation of our society to a large part. A lot of the preservation of language to some extent, and we call them child fuckers because they contain bad actors. Not because Christ was bad, but because followers of the ideology are. Of course, for some of us, that is because the church hates Christ and wants to replace him. Thus, they are the Antichrist, but that's besides the point. That's the truth behind the Grand Inquisitor in the Brothers Karamazov, is that the church is the Antichrist, because they do not care about the message of Christ or Christ's words. They are about societal control, and the world is the realm of Satan, so therefore anything trying to control it is satanic, which makes them. So the point is that we, as a society, hate the Catholic Church, but because of this, yet, we applaud the queer political movement and Muslims and all these other people as a liberal society because we assume they're blameless. And, of course, the Taliban's evil, these people are evil, but our wonderful Western allies combating them, those are heroes. And, you can just see the romanticization of those people and their culture with fucking, American art. Really just tasteful and understanding and really well documented American art, like this, where you have a play called Boy, which is about bakabazi, which is the practice of shall we say boy play. So here's a early review of it from San Diego Tribune. I believe that this originally but was performed in San Francisco. And the boy who danced on air, and this guy goes in through it and he just talks about it, and he the critic is somewhat there's some stuff that could be improved, but ultimately he thinks that it is a touching narrative, and he's talking about the songs, and this is where it's this is a positive review. So you got this, but then once it was online, once it was put to air, with cuties, once it hit the public, all of a sudden, and I don't know, I'm pretty sure that the foreign press broke this first, August 11th, 2020, Bakabazi outrage after pandemic takes play to the small screen. So the practice of Bakabazi is when a warlord or a really affluent person buys a boy of about 10 and makes him a dancer for the rest of his life, and rapes him. And then these boys usually have no other skills to enter society other than dancing and being raped, which isn't a skill, it's just a trauma. So it's like that's the practice, like that's the reality behind this, yet you see this like depiction of it, this fetishization of it, this ultimately this normalization of it. The boys are trained to dance seductively at male-only parties and are often sexually abused. And like this is just this is what's actually happening, and it's something to consider, I'd say, because it's like we can't really say that we have a direct fetishization. What we can say is that we have a direct fetishization by an American leftist in America receiving the direct support of leftist. This is a queer movement. This is the queer movement. Like, this is not... And the reason why I'm using the word queer is not to denotate any specific sort of individual. It's to identify the political ties to sexuality. Because homosexuals are not this. These are not garden variety homosexuals. These are not your Whitman, but these are those who seek to normalize your male child, and if you are male, getting fucked as a child by a grown man, and then being so haunted by this practice that you find, as the song is titled in the play, a boy of your own, which refers to being molested as a boy by an adult male, internalizing that pain and trauma, and then recreating this practice in the future. And this is a romanticization of it. Like, not to get into personal detail, but this is how this works. In my own family, there is ancestral pedophiliac history. It is likely a cycle that my father did not discuss with me before he died, but I was not personally affected because I was born late, and all of my relatives were. I was like, the perpetrators were lovely Obama voting Southern heroes, like they were Southern Democrats, the same people that lived in North Carolina forever, and the same family that fought on the Union side because they thought slavery was wrong. And even those people were infiltrated by the Antichrist. Even those people where it's like, I could not be more morally proud of my heritage in some regards, where it's like, we fought on the side of the Union, and we fought with the Americans against Europe, and it's like, yeah, these things, it's like, yeah, I do believe in dying for moral causes, and that's where, like, my namesake is from, but the culture and the action that also coincides with that is awful. It's like they have these great slogans, they have these great morals, but they themselves are very sick people that hide things. So high-ranking officials in the Department of Defense and Security are male pedophiles looking to fuck boys. That's what I know. And are also deans of schools and tutors, just like in History Boys. So History Boys is like this English play to movie that fetishizes this type of sickness and this type of evil. In that movie, which launched the career of the household name James Corden, an elderly, fat, homosexual teacher with no real skill at his job, is beloved by a group of young boys that he takes on his motorcycle and fondles the genitalia of. Moldbug did a thread on this, and like that's where I was put onto this because I never saw it, but apparently it's beloved in high school. And afterwards, with no educational benefit from this man, so like he did not teach them anything meaningful. His students go on to the most elite schools, like Cambridge, Oxford, whatever, and this takes place in northern England in the 80s, which is a relatively unprogressive area. And so like, why bring that up? Why bring up my Obama-loving pedophile family members? Why bring up Bakabazi? Because at the same time, well, first off, like, how do you get to a great school with not having to work for it and getting fucked by a pedophile? It's like, it makes sense. And like, also, it's like it is a series of blackmail. It is how they control each other. This is the culture of these people who propose to be moral and who think that they are the what's the word, the priest caste of society. Like, this is how they operate, is that they have their own system of how things should work. And like, at the same time that progressives are happy, it's the same time that progressives are happy to release this rainbow monkey dildo butt man, and 25 states are teaching about like whiteness being the devil. There's so let me let that sink in. This is a man with his nipples exposed in a rainbow costume. You know, rainbow, you know, that's supposed to signify. It's supposed to be the homosexual community. I cannot tell you one of my homosexual friends that wants this guy around children 4 to 11 to teach them how to read. And then there's like descriptions of his like dildo flopping about, and like the people who like officially had invited him are like, oh, well, I guess you got it, flaunt it. And it's like, what the fuck, bro? And this is the same, like, fucking, bruh. And okay, so for my American friends, that's the fucking leader of Britain with the rainbow monkey fucking dildo tit guy. These are like, this is a troop that's involved in child's education. And also 25 schools, and I know this is Fox, but still, they're not wrong. 25 public schools districts are pushing books featuring whiteness with the contract with the devil, where they say we can see your pointy tail, and they imply that all of that sort of culture has to do with the devil. It's literally white devil. That's like the propaganda. And so like at the same time that this is the culture that they're promoting, this is what the queer political movement, not homosexuals, because there's not like this is not, that has nothing to do with the action of same-sex contact. This has nothing to do with consenting adults. What it has to do with is a political movement putting this stuff into schools, and then also members of that community who made this play then releasing this video. And I mean, people will say it's satirical, and fine, you can say it's satirical, but it's not what you want for optics. I'm not going to play it because I don't want to. But the link's there, and you can view it at your own fucking risk, dude. You can view it at your own, like, leisure or whatever, you know? So, it's just... The chorus is, "We are coming for your children." And the implicit message is to make them gay. They're not gay yet, but after us, they will be gay. This is the same guy who wrote a play about Bakabazi, in which there is a number that is a boy of his own, which is about being raped as a boy and then raping boys as you grow older to continue the cycle, which again, I'm pretty sure is like what happened to my fucking family and why my dad allowed my brother to get raped. Oh yeah, and even the actors are like, the show romanticized the sexual assault and misconstrued an entire culture and its people. I'm so sorry. Yeah, as you fucking should be, bud. As you fucking should be. Yeah, I have like, I don't know, I've had a lot of people in my life that have had experience in British-occupied Pakistan. So, I don't know, I am like familiar with these sorts of stories, and they're real. They're real. American leftists don't understand. They're real. This is reality. This is like what's going on. And like, I don't like, when you have the resistance forces fighting against people, these are the people that the Americans are working with. Because a Green Beret was exonerated, so he's finally forgiven for striking a child rapist who kept a boy chained to his bed in 2011. You know, this has been going on for a decade. These are the people that we are fighting alongside. And you wonder why it's not being sorted out. You can't put people who have boys chained to their bed in government positions. There are certain moral lines that are more important than oil interest and whatever the fuck you want to do. Like, there's a point to stand up. There's a reason why you must stand up. There's a point where it becomes too much. It becomes too much. And this helps no one. This helps no one. All of the progressives can say, it's just a joke. We're just trolling. We're just trolling the fucking leftists. Or we're just trolling the fucking conservatives. We're just trolling... Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, we're just trolling them so hard. We're just trolling them so hard. Wow. I published this a while ago on my like old Twitter that I got fucking banned for telling my friend a meme. And Twitter responded saying it was serious. So like whatever. But... this is a 1977 petition by all of the postmodernists, all of your favorite theorists, all of your favorite feminists, all of your favorite holy cows who started this philosophy, who started the idea that maybe everything's just power and maybe everything's just post-colonial. Maybe the West just formed the entire world in its image. Maybe they're the bullies. Maybe they have original sin or the evil thing. That's all Foucault. It's all Foucault. That's all Derrida. That's all Deleuze. That's all Beauvoir. That's all Sartre. That's all of them. And they're right there in 1977. 1977. I want to decriminalize all consensual relations between adults and minors below the age of 15. Beauvoir, the founding feminist, and Sartre, and all these people believed that having sex with a 6-year-old was liberating them from the societal construct. You know? Beauvoir longed to be a man and a woman, to be free from these societal constructs. Where these arguments sound familiar? They sound like the things you're being taught in school, because they fucking are. That chorus that did "We're Coming for Your Children" is literally convicted pedophiles. Literally convicted pedophiles. And like, I'm not going to go through all of them. You know? This article doesn't have that many. I can easily find a source. I mean, if you want me to, well, I guess I'll put my money where my mouth is, and I'll pull up a fucking source. And I'm just gonna rely on the obvious. I'm gonna rely, like, it is. I mean, the Lotus Eaters have done a lot of work on just exposing this shit. So did Tim Pool. And like, I understand that these people aren't held in like the same regard as the New Yorker, but I don't see why not. Because like, this is the actual conversation. You know, this is actually what people are doing. And these are the things where it's like, as a central leftist, don't you have a responsibility to stop this before it develops into something that you no longer want to identify with? Like, there's this whole meme that it's like, I didn't leave the left left me. Why allow that to happen? Why not stand up and fight for the things which you care about? If you're about mental health, if you're about homosexual acceptance, if you're about making things easier for everyone, and you're trying to do social acceptance, like, two fathers holding hands in a child cartoon is completely different than the rainbow monkey dildo butt, or the whatever the fuck, you know, the rainbow dildo monkey. So all right, I'll just fucking Google it. I think it was like around 7 to 14. It's not the point. It's not the point. I'll add it in post. But the thing is that it's like, it is literally these people. I'm not that interested in proving the point, because fuck it. I mean, like, it's disgusting. Doing a song that literally says, "We are coming for your children," a message from the gay community. And it's like, this is not, no, you don't get to speak for these people. You don't get to represent these people, because not everybody in this group feels like you are them. You don't get to say what they want. You don't get to say what they promote. This is the idea. If you are somebody who identifies as a leftist and you don't like this shit, it's up to you to draw the line. It's up to you to then take a stand and say, hey, this is not what I fucking mean. This is not what I fucking mean when I talk about, you know, trying to have social exposure or representation. This is not what I promote. Because if not, you're going to lose the whole fucking movement. And the only thing, like, dude, honestly, like, the point that you should be getting is that you have more in common with a center-right individual than you do with these people. You know? They might disagree with you on the emphasis in society, but they're not going to radically do something amoral. And then there's fucking, you know? So, back to the script, but, so So if you support the queer agenda, again, recognizing it as political homosexuality, if you support the parades, if you must talk to children about sexuality, these are your allies. These are the people that you are working from. So it's like modern day they're doing this, and the people who started the philosophy also promoted this. This has been a through line throughout the philosophy. This is the philosophy. If you are allied with this, this is where they're going. So don't buy a ticket if you don't want to go to the destination. This is what being a Biden Barbie ends up with. This is what being a Never Trumper did. This is what people wanted. Trump never started a camp for homosexuals. He never started killing off gays. But these people are teaching first graders to masturbate and giving fifth graders condoms. So when I should have sources for these too. Oh yeah, there you go. We got this one, which is them teaching them how to use fucking Grindr and Tinder. Third fucking grade. And they're teaching them about sex apps. There's also this really disgusting fucking school. This really disgusting video here, which is about like child sexuality, and it's like, bro, like I don't even know if I want to show this one either. Like, just look at this. It's unlisted at this point, but you can like, it's prepubescent bodies. I don't even want to show like. God, I don't even want to show the like I don't even want to do this because like then you'll see like because it's like we can go back, but going forward, this features a prepubescent like female. I mean, I get like if it's on YouTube and it's not private, like I get like dude like it's like I guess I'm just gonna show it little. Like you can see it there where it's just these like diagrams of child genitalia pointing to it. And, like, talking about where the clitoris is and talking about stimulation. And, like, it's... like, listen. I fucking started masturbating early. I get it. I was just... wee! But, like, just, like, I also came from a cycle of abuse. It's like I also came from an incredibly abusive household. I don't think normal kids should be exposed to shit like this. I don't think that they need to, I don't know. I don't like it. I don't think anybody does. And this is this is the propaganda that they're giving to children about masturbation. They're giving them condoms. They're giving them these books about how whiteness is evil. And it all like stems back to the postmodernist and the feminist who are allies in this petition against the age of consent laws in 1977. 1977. So that is 44 years ago. That's 44 years ago. Good Atari, like all these people, like these are heroes. God, it does make me want to fucking vomit though. And Foucault was so it's like the people like talk about how these people ended history, they ended philosophy, they ended the debate. And this was I think this is a once-off accident. It's like, no, this is the philosophy of it. So call yourself a postmodernist, call yourself a feminist all you want, and suck Simone de Beauvoir's asshole all you want. I'm not interested. Also, these ideas. So the idea that women have never been able to work throughout history is fucking ridiculous. The idea, like the women have preserved language throughout periods of history. Do you not think that was a fucking job when they're copying out script and keeping literacy alive throughout Dark Ages? Like, dude, they're very important within society. Joan of Arc was relatively employed, wasn't she? There's like textile making, like art, like all these things. Sappho was a poet. The idea that women didn't exist before the fucking, before the fucking woman decided to put on a bandana and do the Chinese fucking power fist, do the like socialist power fist. Like all of a sudden after that, women had a voice. All of a sudden after that, women had agency. All of a sudden, humanity started giving a fuck after that. Like that's such a ignorant, narcissistic, self-congratulatory philosophy. where it's like, oh, my philosophy saved everything. You know, it's like, fuck you. Because that philosophy doubled the workforce. So the thing that people forget about this is that getting women out of the workforce and into the workplace was not directly, like, what did it do for women? Well, first off, what did it do for families? Now you have to have two people working. So it doubled the workforce. You now have both parents working, and it stagnated wages while inflation continued to rise, forcing like both parents to overwork, meaning that they had no time to watch their child, meaning that that child went to public school, and under the conditions for most, it was raised by a government employee who spent more time with them than with their parents did in their most developmental phases. And you may be pro-abortion, you may be pro like slut, you might be pro-sexuality, but you're anti-mother at the very least. And mothers are women. Like they're a demographic of women. So if you don't like moms, you don't like at least most women. So like that is also people you have to take into account. Not everything should stem from a feminist who, let's get into it. So like Tony, like with Foucault, I don't want to hear how he reinvented all of philosophy because he's a fucking sick individual. I don't give a shit. I don't really give a shit about Plato either. I like Machiavelli. You know? He's an anarchist who got tortured, but because he didn't say anything, they didn't execute him, and they were just like, fucking get out of here. So that's what her position led to. And the point of having one person having to work in a family is not to say that women can't be plumbers. It's not to ban women from being road workers. It's not banning them from starting a company. You know, it's not to prevent women from these opportunities. I think most of us can also agree that if a woman wants to pursue that, she should be able to. But it's about that. Imagine how many women would quit working and quit school if you gave them $30,000 a year to have a kid between the ages of 20 and 30. So like during that time period, you were like, here is all of the economic incentive you would need to be able to afford housing, feed yourself, clothe yourself, feed your child, clothe your child, and take care of things. Here is state support for you to do that, and just see what women would do, see what women would choose. And if that's completely lost on you, and it seems like I'm making no sense, and it seems like I'm just fucking out to lunch, and that's not valuable, let's go deeper. So the Daily Mail wrote about the love between Beauvoir, so the foundational thinker of feminism, and she's the author of The Second Sex, Sartre, who is he's in your school. You had him around in high school. You know, No Exit, so fucking famous. Daria thinks it's so snide because he can comment on it, and that's my favorite show. But while Simone de Beauvoir preached her ideals of feminist independence and equality, eschewing such bourgeois concepts as marriage and children, and claiming women should behave just like men, the truth is that such a lifestyle made her bitterly unhappy, and she became obsessively jealous over her lover, Sartre's countless conquest. It was her craven desire to please him that led Beauvoir to groom young female lovers for Sartre, commonly girls that she had fucked herself. During the first years, Sartre embarked on the arrangement with gusto. He liked to sleep with virgins, after which he rapidly lost interest, because it's about power. Power. If you talk about power, think about your allies. These are your allies. This left the highly sexed, the highly horny, the Coomer Simone, now teaching philosophy, constantly frustrated, despite the lovers that she took. It was when she developed a relationship with one of her young female pupils that the first of her love triangles with Sartre came about. When Sartre had a breakdown after experimenting with hallucinogenic drugs, Simone asked her new lover to nurse him. But she was not prepared for the crippling jealousy she felt when Sartre tried to seduce not only the girl, but her younger sister as well. Simone's reaction to Sartre's faithlessness was to sleep with another one of her pupils, and when Sartre retaliated by deflowering another young virgin, Simone pinched her lover's 21-year-old boyfriend. So, like, Jesus, right? Jesus Christ, right? So, To vent her frustrations after Sartre said of the young pupil on the days of triumph, he left her lying in bed, all pure and tragic, declaring herself tired and having hated me for a good 45 minutes. After this, Beauvoir wrote she came to stay, an account of the Sartre-Beauvoir-Olga affair, so that's the young girl. And it's a lightly fictionalized account of that, except at the end of the novel, Beauvoir murders the young girl. So fictionally, she murders her, and she dedicated the book to her. And this is a recurrent theme because Beauvoir also fantasized about murdering men because she hated them. And just like instinctively, she just thought men were bad. So onto the victims that they had. One took to self-harming. So those two girls, one self-harmed, another committed suicide, and most women remained pathetically unfulfilled and dependent on the childless Simone, who referred to these girls as her family. So yet, despite one of her 16-year-old children, so this is a 16-year-old child that she fucked, and she got her as a student, so this was her student. So she literally, she came as a tutor, and this is what my grandfather did too. They literally start as a tutor or a teacher, and then they fuck them. And despite this girl being Jewish, Simone and Sartre grew tired of her and didn't ask when the Nazis took Paris if she was all right. So Nazis have taken Paris. They killed her grandfather. They killed her aunt. And these people don't even give a fuck. Not only was she Simone's student and lover, but Simone allowed Sartre to attempt to woo her. Eventually, Sartre lured the young girl to a hotel and then assuaded her fears with sleeping with a man for the first time. So deflowering this girl by explaining that he had fucked a virgin in the same room the day before. On that experience, the first encounter was unpleasant. Sartre had a mildly sadistic attitude towards sex. He took enormous satisfaction in the conquest, but little pleasure in the sex. And so he usually terminated the physical part of his affairs coldly and quickly. Still, he and Bianca, the Jewish girl, became lovers. And Sartre and Beauvoir kept up the pretense that they were both in love with her until they had enough. And then prompted by Beauvoir, Sartre wrote a letter announcing the end of the affair. So, this is the power people. This is the power people. So, I don't know if you guys have been around, and I don't know if you've just, met strangers and, had friends and all that, but you know those fucking people who say everything's about power. Everything's about power. Everything's about sex. Sex is about power. Those people. This is them. This is them. This is what that philosophy is. 3 months later, and then it's well, what about ancient Greece and ancient Rome? And it's yeah, don't read the ancient Greeks and Romans who were about that. Ovid, who lived in the time period, literally wrote books about why you should not engage in sex with people who couldn't feel pleasure from it. And that's why you should fuck consenting adults. So 3 months later, the Nazis rolled in, and Bianca Bienenfeld, the Jewish girl, narrowly escaped capture. And once she was reunited with Simone after the war, she continued to visit her old teacher until Simone died. And it was only after Simone's posthumous writing came out that she learned both of those authors considered her a shallow nuisance and disposable. The same feminist hero who demanded women be thrust into the workplace, that there is no essential difference between genders other than oppression, the fierce proponent and founder of all our modern trendy leftist phases wrote, "I'm awfully greedy. I want everything from life. I want to be a woman and to be a man." All this should sound familiar. The propaganda to this day has not been updated. They want to fuck your children to dominate them, abandon them, continue the cycle, break the family, and destroy society. And now, additionally, from a leftist source celebrating her a few years ago, you can just see the language that they have bathed her in. So this is from 2018. And keep in mind, all this stuff has been known since this woman died. So today, she died in 86. Today marks the 110th birth anniversary of Simone de Beauvoir, the acclaimed French feminist theorist who was born this day on January 9th. She is most known for her groundbreaking work, The Second Sex, along with her books Mandarin, which received France's highest literary award in 1954. Her phenomenal work on gender and her formulation, "One is not born, but rather becomes a woman," became the basis for understanding gender as a construct. This is the person who founded that idea. So when you're talking about that, you're using her ideas. This is your father. This is the father of your philosophy. A core idea for modern day feminism. And then, this is the critique that she gets. Not the critique that she's fucking creepy as shit, But at 21, the French philosopher became the 9th woman, the youngest person ever to obtain the prestigious aggregation in philosophy from the École Normale Supérieure. Some critiques have argued that the lack of perspective on race in her work contributed to a discussion about white privilege among second-wave feminists. So that's what she did wrong. She didn't talk about race enough. That was the issue. Look at these fucking evil people. It's not funny, but like, oh. So yet, I forgot. Not only that, but after these people were working with the Nazis and sucking their dick, de Beauvoir, along with their partner Sartre, the French philosopher known for his work on the theory of existentialism, were invited to visit Cuba's capital Havana to meet the Argentine revolutionary Che Guevara and Cuban revolutionary Fidel Castro after the Cuban Revolution. So not only were they not loyal to France, and they betrayed France for Nazi Germany. Not only were they not loyal to Nazi Germany, and they betrayed Nazi Germany for America. Not only were they not loyal to America, and they betrayed America for the communists, but like, how could you even believe that they were loyal to communism? How could you believe that they were even loyal to that? And they're certainly not loyal to existentialism, and we will get into that. Because, this is the father of existentialism. These are fucking idea thieves. These are people who shat out the pop sci, the pop lit version of deep work. They read and then chewed out and made up bullshit for the masses to just pretend that was good. That's it. That's all they did. They're not fucking amazing. They're not the best writers ever. So, yet this communist hero feminist Beauvoir had no part in resisting the Nazis, and instead she focused on fucking young and impressionable people. Many she pretended to teach. Pairing up with Sartre, the reputation allowed them to lure girls with the promise of becoming actresses in Sartre's play in the theater. Does that ring a bell? Does it seem like any other society that we might know of? Maybe in, I don't know, like the western part of the United States, maybe the southern region. However, when one of the girls in her family got pregnant, she forced her to get an illegal abortion because Beauvoir believed that the condition of pregnancy was insulting and it was an impediment to women's self-fulfillment in the wider world. So if you're terrified of pregnancy, if you think pregnancy is a crime against God, if you think that being feminine is bad, all of these ideas come from this woman. This is who taught you. Sartre was captured by the Germans, then released because he charmed them. At first, he had pretended to be a part of this resistance, but then realized how much cozier it was to accept a teaching post, which was stolen by the Nazis from a Jew. So the literal Nazis ousted a Jew from his job, and Sartre's like, well, I could do that. Later, he would pretend to always have been a resistance fighter, but at that moment, he was hanging out with the German censor, fraternizing with the censor so that he could get published. So this period during the Nazi occupation was the golden era where these visionary pedophiles could associate with fellow titans such as Picasso. Expecting 20 years of German occupation, they got comfortable in the regime. They continued their abusive string of lovers under the guise of education. And even when a mother tried to accuse the circle, the founders of postmodern politics had their victims close rank and lie for them. Due to this, Simone lost her teaching job and got into writing. So they weren't even famous authors. She wasn't even a famous author at this point. So while these people might claim Dostoevsky, they have no understanding of true existentialism. He said, Dostoevsky said that children are our future, not your fleshlight. He did not say that they are your fleshlight. All of them, they judged all, and they fucked kids. Dostoevsky said love all and protect children. They judged all and fucked kids. By 1945, Sartre was starting to signal his resistance loyalty, and then he earned a hero's welcome in America where he immediately began to fuck. Then he moved back to Paris and with his mom. And on that, so this is a quote from another article. This one is from this one. But the passage that I have selected is, Sartre's novels and plays earned him a great deal of money after the war, but he spent virtually none of it on himself, a lifelong habit. In 1946, at the peak of his celebrity, as the philosopher of freedom and authenticity, he moved in with his mother. He used most of his income to support friends and current and former mistresses. He described the women to which he was attracted to as drowning women whose lives were damaged or insecure, which is why they offered the devotion he demanded. They were all a little desperate, and Sartre was the leading intellectual in a culture that treats its intellectuals like pop stars. He set his women up in apartments within 10 minutes of his own, and every week he made what he called his medical rounds. Each woman had specified hours allotted to spend with him. The women almost never saw each other. In many cases, they never knew about each other. But they all knew about Beauvoir, and Beauvoir was Sartre's standing excuse. The beaver wouldn't like it, and he had to spend more time with the beaver. In response to this horror show, Simone ran to America, which hated her for being a smelly pervert that hated men and wanted them all dead. There she wrote arguably her magnum opus, The Second Sex, while fucking some weirdo artist in Chicago, which many a female freshman jerks off with. Of course, Beauvoir hated American women for actually, at the time, wanting to get along with men. An unthinkable paradigm now. And I'm thinking, wow, very toxic or something. Better trust traffickers instead. Better trust the people who literally had, in 1977, signed a petition. So it's not like, oh, she lived in a different era. She's just an old feminist. 1977, they wanted to legalize all sexual contact with children under the age of 15. So that's 6-year-olds. You'd rather fly that flag. You'd rather see, I am a devout, ardent, and forever feminist, and I will never be allied with the men of my generation who have most likely actually been kind of nice to me, at least some in my lifetime. You know, there's probably like, I don't know, a man who opened the door for me or something, and that wasn't even like, you know, just out of the niceness of it. Or like maybe like, you know, I actually do have a good relationship with my brother, or maybe I have a healthy relationship, and I actually appreciate it like that, and that's a meaningful part of my life. No, I'm a feminist! You know, it's like, what? These are... If this is the flag that you want so fucking much. If this is the flag that you want so fucking much. After that, the pair of the dwarf and the Jezebel went on to become the darlings of Castro and communism. So to wrap this up, the Daily Mail reports that even at the end, Sartre was surrounded by as many as 9 young women, all fussing about his health. For many years, he had kept himself going with amphetamines, black coffee, and cigarettes, followed by sleeping pills and red wine. Now he was incontinent, lame, and blind. On the brink of his death in 1980, Sartre was also flirting with Judaism. And Simone was appalled. To embrace God would have been to reverse their entire lives' work. These were godless people, after all. After he died, Simone was left alone with his body in the hospital, and she crawled under the sheet to spend one last night with him. Now that his restless mind was stilled, she at least had him where she wanted him. And so she broke her nihilistic epitaph for the tomb they would ultimately share, ensuring their bleak and godless creed would go down in history. His death separates us. My death will not reunite us, it read. In conclusion, the hero of the left's favorite ideology was a pedophile who died an unrequited lover that couldn't even make a degenerate give a fuck about her. What a great role model. Wow, I really want to be like her. I really want to be like Foucault. These people are just so fucking smart. They're such geniuses. So let me make this clear. To the best of my interpretation, this is not Dostoevsky. I am trained in historical existentialism, and this is not that. Nietzsche is a misunderstood schizophrenic, I believe. Nazis are evil. Dostoevsky explored the reality of good and evil within the soul and within all people. These people are soulless. Referencing these things does not mean you understand them. And yet, again, my favorite show, Daria, references Sartre, thinking itself so wise and snide. Then the same show goes on to preach feminist and progressive leftist values. Interesting that it also happens to be a show by adults, written about high school. So, what's the commonality between all these people? If the Catholics believe in Christ, then the postmodernists believe in power. They define everything as a power struggle. Race is power, gender is power, age is power, politics is power, sex is power. Everything to them is power, and they fuck kids. Race is power, gender is power, age is power, politics is power, sex is power, everything is power. And the people who think that, fuck kids. So next time you hear someone talking about power and how it's the only thing in the world, remember that they are coming for your children, as they themselves say, and tell them about the reality behind all of their foundational figures. If they defend them, they're as complicit as those who defend the priests that fuck choir boys. Don't play with me. You must be ethically consistent. If you are not allowed to value the Catholic Church because of those bad actors, you are not allowed to value feminism, you are not allowed to value postmodernism because of those bad actors. Either all of it's okay, or none of it's okay. Just because somebody agrees with you doesn't mean they're good. To recap with just final quotes that I found from these pieces, Their liaison, this fucking French word. Their liaison was part of the mystique of existentialism, and it was extensively documented and coolly defended in Beauvoir's 4 volumes of memoirs, all of them extremely popular in France. The Memoirs of a Dutiful Daughter, The Prime of Life, Force of Circumstance, and All Said and Done. Beauvoir and Sartre had no interest in varnishing the facts out of respect for bourgeois notions of decency. Disrespect for bourgeois notions of decency was precisely the point. Oh, wow. Fuck these bourgeois morals. I wonder who fucking says that nowadays, huh? You really want to be working with them? You really want to be next to them? I don't think so. I think you might be in the center left. The most appalling discovery for many readers was what telling each other everything really meant. The correspondence was filled with catty and disparaging remarks about the people Beauvoir and Sartre were either sleeping with or trying to sleep with, even though when they were with those people, they radiated interest and affection. Their customary method was to adopt a very young woman as a protege, to take her to movies and cafes, travel with her, help her with her education and career, support her financially. And Sartre wrote, this is why Sartre wrote most of his plays, he wrote most of his plays to give parts to women, to give them jobs. And they, according to this, the feeling that they were sleeping with their children must have juiced up the erotic fun. Anyways, from the second sex, if a woman has false ideas, if she is not very intelligent, clear-sighted, or courageous, a man does not hold her responsible. She is the victim, he thinks, and often with reason, of her situation. He dreams of what she might have been, of what she perhaps will be. She can be credited with any possibilities because she is nothing in particular. This vacancy is what makes the lovey weary of her quickly, but is the source of the mystery, the charm that seduces him and makes him feel inclined to an easy affection in the first place. There's no more, and this is the author's commentary, there's no more remorseless dissection of the situation of the successful man's mistress than the independent woman. And since Beauvoir always wrote out of her own experience, since Beauvoir always wrote out of her own experience, since Beauvoir always wrote out of her own experience, since Beauvoir always wrote out of her own experience, out of her own experience, out of her own experience, since the founder of feminism always wrote out of her own experience, it is possible to imagine this chapter as a coded letter to Sartre, the evisceration that she could never deliver to his face, and now that coding has been part of high school curriculum for decades. Is it wrong to care about women's rights? Is it wrong to think that women should be able to decide their life paths for themselves, that they deserve education and the freedom to live life as they please, that if they want to become a researcher or a scientist or an auto mechanic, that they should be held back? No, it's not wrong to think that it's wrong to hold women back from what they want to do. It's not wrong to think that women deserve education. It's not wrong to think that women deserve agency. All these are noble, divine, good, strong, ethical truths. But nobody owns them. Historically, these values were appropriated from the humanist, and they were in turn sired by successful periods of Christian empires. So if you want to label, these are actually humanist values or Christian values. Both of those work. So you can either be a humanist or a Christian. That's what I would recommend. And this is also, if again you understand that the church and organized power itself is the Antichrist. So, however, you should not allow these values and people who use the words meant to represent them or other interest groups such as women, homosexuals, the poor, to convince you to feel comfortable with any ideology. Trace back the founding of most of the things people push in your face and you won't like them. Mental illness treatment is an offshoot of eugenics. Trendy social issues rarely stand for what their name does. It's easy to lie. It's easy to say you're the good guys. Hard to build a coherent philosophy and respect the many cultures which came before you. Hard to love. Hard to love a species made by rape and war and respect women as they deserve, but one must be able to do so to be whole. You have to accept the bad with the good. You have to understand that humans are very complicated and you can't reject yourself or other people. We have to continue the project. You know, we have to make things better incrementally. We can't just make life in the image of what we think is good. The same is true with Foucault and the homosexuals, with Sartre and the ugly, and the atheist. And the same with Beauvoir and women. These groups of people, homosexuals, atheists, ugly people, women, are not bad people. These are just human beings. But those individuals who try to muster them into an identity group and speak for them and say that we're coming for your children, those are bad people. Those are bad people. Those people who pretend to represent people morally but do not are bad people. They're cult leaders. Those are literal cult leaders. That's why this is a religious action, and you need to break out of the paradigm if you are sympathetic towards it. Just like this is, I'm trying to be the canary right now. We need to build a center-left fallback so that when the snap comes, because this shit's already blowing up with the right wing, and we need to make a clear distinction here between being pro-homosexual and anti-queer politics. There should be no criminality for your life choices. Unless, of course, for the obvious. But, like, if you are engaged in a bisexual lifestyle, a homosexual lifestyle, or whatever, what have you in a consensual manner, it's nobody's business. That's good for you. When you start trying to teach kids how to masturbate, get the fuck out of here, bro. That's not even gay. It's just strange. Stop. Just get it. Just stop. You don't need to have these conversations with shit. Like, the internet. You don't need to form children in the image that you want them to be. They're mostly going to be inspired by their environment. The world raises kids more than you do. So you don't need to force people into good ideas or solid ethics. Those are inspired by the environment. That's where they come from. And these things are attractive inherently. So protect women, protect children, protect men. Respect everybody, do your best, and try to give back. If this resonates with you, then do not implicitly support these movements. Don't say their names positively or defend their heroes. Do your best to forget their words. They're poisonous. Virginia Woolf, Fyodor Dostoevsky, Anina Nen, Ovid, Hannah Arendt, all of these are heroes that people can learn from and live by, that by and large seem to be forgivable and offer rich insight into life. There are a plethora of sources that don't engage in Nazi apologetica, communist fetishization, or child abuse. It is one thing to read Hamsun's novel as an aesthetic work, and another thing to study the philosophy of a man who justified atrocities and worked with all those who progressives acclaim to oppose. These aren't just artists. These are also philosophers. Like, there are, if you want to do like the edgy artists, like, okay, there's aesthetic value in some things. Like, we did learn some things. Where do you think NASA came from? But like, when it comes down to the philosophy, fuck you. Dostoevsky, again, Dostoevsky said the kids are the future, not your fleshlight. Here's a passage from Demons. That's what we're going to get into. It's a book about nihilistic socialist use and old nepotistic and incompetent men and a gullible public obsessed with appearing moral and progressive. We'll get into also more postmodernism shit later. I mean, we're already like 8 minutes away from the end, So just to wrap this up, we're going to spoil the end of the book. And I'm sorry, but this book has been out for literally hundreds of years, or 100 years at least. So if you want to read it, read it. But the point of this book, Dostoevsky. So this is where Sartre stole all of his ideas, where he says that he was inspired. He stole names from this very guy. And in this book, there is a fundamentally crucial socialist nihilist character who rapes a 12-year-old. I'm pretty sure she's 12. And nobody gives a shit. He is never socially punished. He is never punished by God. He is never punished by society. But instead, this is the conclusion of the novel. So, here is his letter. In the style of a young Russian squire who never fully learned his Russian grammar in spite of all of his European education. My good Daria Pavlovna, you once wanted to be my nurse and made me promise to send for you when needed. I'm going away in 2 days and will not come back. Want to go with me? Last year, like Herzen, I registered as a citizen of Canton Uri, and no one knows it. I've already bought a small house there. I have 12,000 rubles left. We'll go and live there eternally. I don't want to move anywhere, ever. The place is very dull, a ravine. The mountain cramped sight and thought. Very grim. It was because there a small house for sale. If you don't like it, I'll sell it and buy another in another place. I'm not well, but I hope with the local air I'll get rid of my hallucinations. Physically, that is, and morally, Only is it all? I've told you a lot in my life, but not all, even to you, not all. Incidentally, I confirmed in my conscience I am guilty of my wife's death. I have not seen you since then, and I am so confirming it. I am guilty before Lizaveta, but here you do not know. Here you predicted almost everything. Better don't come. The fact I'm calling you to you is terrible baseness. Why should you bury your life with me? You are dear to me, and when I was in anguish I felt good near you. Only in your presence I could speak of myself aloud. Nothing follows from that. You yourself define it as nursing. It's your expression. Why sacrifice so much? Realize also that I do not pity you, since I'm calling you, and do not respect you, since I'm waiting for you to come. And yet I call and wait. In any such case, I need your answer, because I must leave very soon, and in such case I'll go alone. I have no hope from Yuri. I'm simply going. I did not choose a gloomy place on purpose. Nothing binds me to Russia. Everything in it is as foreign to me as anywhere else. True, I disliked living in it more than elsewhere, but even in it I was unable to come to hate everything. I've trusted my strength everywhere. You advised me to do that in order to know myself. This testing is for myself, and to show you it proved to be boundless as before all life. In front of your very eyes, I endured a slap from your brother. I acknowledged my merit publicly. But what to apply to my strength to? That I have never seen, nor do I see it now, despite your encouragement in Switzerland, which I believed. I am capable now as ever of wishing to do a good deed, and I take pleasure in that, although with it I wish for evil and also feel pleasure. Both the one and the other, as always, are too shallow, and never very much. My desires are far too weak, and they cannot guide. One can cross a river on a log, but not on a chip. And all this so that you don't think I'm going to Yuri with any hopes. As always, I do not blame anyone. I've tried great debauchery and exhausted my strength in it. But I don't like debauchery, and I did not want it. You've been observing me lately. Do you know that I even looked at these negators of ours with spite, envying them their hope? But your fears were empty. I could not be their comrade because I shared nothing, nor could I do it out of ridicule for spite, and not because I was afraid of the ridiculous. I cannot be afraid of the ridiculous, but because, after all, I have the habits of a decent man, and felt disgusted. Still, if I had more spite and envy for them, I might even have gone over to them. You can judge how easy it has been for me, and how I've tossed about. Dear friend, tender and magnanimous being whom I've divined. Perhaps you dream of giving me so much love and of pouring upon me so much beautiful from your beautiful soul that you hope in some way to finally set up some goal for me. No, you had better be more careful. My love will be as shallow as I myself am, and you will be unhappy. Your brother told me that he who loses ties with the earth also loses his gods, and that is all his goals. One can argue endlessly about everything, but what poured out of me was only negation, with no magnanimity and no force, or not even negation. Everything is always shallow and listless. Kirilov could not even endure, but I do see that he was magnanimous because he was not in his right mind. I can never lose my mind, nor can I ever believe an idea to the same degree as he did. I cannot even entertain an idea to the same degree. I could never shoot myself. I know I ought to kill myself. To sweep myself off the earth like a vile insect, but I'm afraid of suicide because I'm afraid of showing magnanimity. I know it will be one more deceit, the last deceit in an endless series of deceits. What's the use of deceiving everyone just to play at magnanimity? There can never be any indignation or shame in me, and so no despair either. Forgive me for writing so much. I've come to my senses, and this is accidental. This way 100 pages are too little, and 10 lines are enough. To call for a nurse, 10 lines are enough. Since I've left, I've been living 6 stations away. Blah, 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 blah. No one knows I'm living here. The last thing that he wrote before. So, well, there's also the part that was at Tikhon's, which was originally censored in Russia because of its, discussion of it. And the priest talking about, does one believe in demons and I love you? And Stavogrin says, I don't invite anyone in my soul. I don't need anyone. I'm capable of managing by myself. And then from Stavogrin, his confession is that he gave himself over to debauchery in which he found no pleasure. And he found himself at a barn in a house in June. And there was a landlady who was beating her daughter. And she just, well, he thought she would, but she just yelled at her. And the woman went wild and rushed for the broom and whipped the girl so that she was just, fucked. And then so And then he talks about humiliating himself, and not in the meanness way, but because he loves the intoxication. And it's the same thing as dueling, where it's like he's just shooting somebody in the hopes of being killed, but also of killing. And so he's all, yep. And then, I mean, it just goes on to the description. And the priest tells him he forgives it. So then he, he does what he does, and then this little girl hates him, but then she also, like, throws her arm around his neck and wants to, at first she was ashamed, but then she threw herself at him. And eventually, whatever got consummated, she continued to get beat. And then, like, this continues to occur. And the point of why I'm bringing this up is that he goes through a full confession of these terrible things. And then the priest forgave him. He says that you are already giving yourself enough punishment. You have made yourself into, essentially a Christ figure by taking all of this guilt upon yourself and all that. And the thesis is that even with this confession, even with this forgiveness, the last thing that this character writes before hanging himself is, "Blame no one, it was I." So the thesis of this character, the thesis of that sin, was that he killed himself. The point was that even if society forgave him, even if religion forgave him, even if all of the world said that he was fine, the man, and like women loved him. Like there's no issue with this character. He's very charismatic, but he killed himself because he knew of his guilt and of his sin. Sartre and Beauvoir failed to understand the messages in his work. They're not Dostoevskian. If Dostoevsky is the father of existentialism, they are no children of his. They're no children of his. They are the spawn of fucking Satanists, dude. But I think that's the episode for today. Sorry for such a heavy episode. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe. This is High Lit. Next week we're getting to some more lighthearted shit, hopefully. But I figured this is a very important topic to discuss because I think that as central leftists, we're very quiet people that don't want to necessarily stand up for ourselves and take these moral sorts of stands. But we believe things, guys. We do have a distinct moral compass, and I think all of us are offended by the development of these sorts of things. So I think that if we stand up and make a more reasoned approach towards saying, like, hey, we want a center, we want to have some sort of, fair conversation where it's like you don't go too far this way, you don't go too far this way. You don't blame the homosexuals for corrupting your children. You also don't talk to kids about dildos. You don't show them. I feel like there's a middle ground that is very firm that we should establish. And I think that this is a starting point. That's what I'm trying to do. I did not want to get political with anything on the show. But, this is literature. I think that this is part of the literary war. People just don't read, so they don't know, but I think that that's where we're still locked in. So please let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and I tried. So this is not an appeal to you, but this is an appeal to humanity. I love you. I don't judge people or reject people. I don't care what your identity is or what your anything physical is. Any attribute that you cannot change, I am totally tolerant of and accepting. So I just want to make that clear. None of this is directed at anybody but political movements. So even if I was impassioned, and just know I'm not railing against you personally. I'm railing against the progression of these ideas. So again, thank you for tuning in. I'm Carlisle Fletcher. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get it.